The phone rang in the dead of night like an omen, each unanswered ring tightening Michelle Reeves' heart in unbearable fear. Heavy rain pounded against the window, as if nature itself was mourning the tragic fate of the young girl lying motionless in the depths of the forest. Her body cold, her breath as fragile as a thread clinging to life. This is the story of Ashley Reeves, a beautiful and promising 17-year-old high school student from Belleville, Illinois, who endured the most harrowing ordeal of her life in April 2006. A story not only of horrific crime, but also of extraordinary resilience and the will to survive. This is the Ashley Reeves case. Hope in the darkness. Before tragedy struck, Ashley Reeves was the embodiment of the American teenage dream. Living in a cozy home in the peaceful town of Millstadt near Belleville, Ashley stood out with her radiant smile and bright, determined eyes. She was not only beautiful but also intelligent and hardworking, with a rare strength and decisiveness for someone her age. In the eyes of her parents, Michelle and Michael Reeves, Ashley was a source of immense pride, a daughter who knew what she wanted and relentlessly pursued her goals. She had a close-knit group of friends who supported her, a boyfriend named Jeremy, who loved and respected her, and a bright future ahead. The fateful day of April 27, 2006, began like any other ordinary day. The sun shone through Ashley's window as she prepared for a busy day. That day, she was particularly excited. She had a job interview in Fairview Heights, an opportunity she had been eagerly waiting for. With a quick goodbye kiss to her mother, Ashley borrowed Jeremy's car and left home around 3:30 p.m., promising to return before 10 p.m., a curfew she had never broken. In her bag, she carried a change of clothes, planning to play basketball after her interview, an activity she deeply loved. No one could have predicted that this would be the last time Michelle saw her daughter in normal circumstances, and that the next time she would see Ashley, she would be lying in a hospital bed, fighting for her life. When the clock struck 10 p.m. and there was no sign of Ashley, Michelle felt a vague unease creeping in. At first, she tried to reassure herself that her daughter might have met up with friends and lost track of time. But as 11 p.m. passed, her worry turned into panic. This was not typical behavior for Ashley, a girl who was always punctual and responsible. By midnight, the Reeves household was engulfed in overwhelming tension as Michelle and her eldest daughter, Tacy, continuously called and texted Ashley, only to be met with a terrifying silence. Each unanswered ring tightened Michelle's heart in anguish and helplessness. "I felt that something terrible had happened," Michelle later recalled, tears streaming down her cheeks as she remembered the dreadful night. "A mother's instinct is never wrong. I knew my daughter was in danger." Unable to endure the uncertainty any longer, Michelle called the St. Clair County Sheriff's Office, her voice trembling as she reported Ashley missing. At first, the officers were not overly concerned. To them, this was just another case of a missing teenager, situations that usually resolved themselves when the child returned home after a night out with friends. But Lieutenant Mike Hundold, a veteran officer with years of experience, sensed something different in Michelle's voice. She didn't sound like the typical parent reporting a missing child, he recalled. There was real panic in her voice, a deep fear that only a mother could feel. Within hours, a full-scale investigation was launched. Detectives began retracing Ashley's movements that day, but leads were scarce. No one had seen her after she left home. The job interview she was supposed to attend seemed to have never happened. Her phone remained eerily silent. Friends, family, and the local community quickly mobilized, plastering missing person flyers with Ashley's face everywhere, organizing search parties, combing through streets, forests, and parks, while the relentless countdown reminded everyone of it. The grim reality. The first 48 hours in a missing person case are crucial, and with each passing minute, Ashley's chances of being found safe dwindled. The first people questioned by police were those closest to Ashley, starting with her boyfriend Jeremy. With bloodshot eyes from lack of sleep and worry, Jeremy recounted everything he knew. He explained that he had lent Ashley his car for her job interview, and that she had planned to play basketball afterward. He insisted that he had been out of town that day and had not seen or spoken to Ashley since she left. His story was consistent, and friends confirmed his alibi, quickly ruling him out as a suspect. A significant breakthrough came when Jeremy's car, the one Ashley had been driving, was found abandoned in Lerman Park, about 15 minutes from her home. The sight of the empty vehicle, unlocked and sitting alone in a deserted parking lot, sent a wave of dread through investigators. Inside, they found Ashley's bag with her change of clothes still neatly packed, but there was no trace of Ashley. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no indication of a fight, one detective noted. But that was even more unsettling. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Examining the location where the car was found, investigators raised a crucial question. Why had Ashley driven to a park so far from home when there were closer parks she frequently visited? The answer came from an unexpected source: her closest friends. With reluctance and tear-filled eyes, they revealed a secret Ashley had kept from her family. She had been involved in a secret romantic relationship with an older man, and she had planned to meet him that afternoon, the day she disappeared. The revelation hit Michelle like a punch to the gut. How could her daughter have kept something so important from her? Who was this man? And what did he want with a 17-year-old girl? In a desperate bid for answers, Michelle accessed Ashley's phone records, which were registered under her name. Among the recent calls, one number appeared repeatedly, more than any other. With trembling hands, Michelle dialed the number, unaware that this call would lead to a heartbreaking discovery. On the other end, a deep male voice answered. He introduced himself as Samson Shelton, 26 years old. When Michelle asked about Ashley, Samson remained oddly calm and suspiciously friendly. He admitted knowing Ashley but claimed he had not seen her that day, even ending the call lightly by suggesting she contact him if she found her, an unnervingly casual attitude for such a serious situation. Samson Shelton's name quickly became the focus of the investigation, and as detectives delved into his background, a troubling picture began to emerge. Samson was not a stranger to Ashley. He had been her driver's education instructor and gym coach in middle school, teaching her when she was in 7th grade. In addition to teaching, Samson had a side career as a professional wrestler, a strong, physically imposing man who knew how to use his strength. After years without contact, Samson and Ashley had reconnected in February 2006, and their relationship had quickly developed into something that should never have happened: a forbidden relationship between a teenage girl and a man old enough to be her older brother. When Ashley had been missing for a grueling 24 hours, detectives brought Samson Shelton in for questioning at the high school where he taught. What unfolded in the next 12 hours inside the interrogation room would be a painful journey into the dark soul of a predator disguised as a teacher. At first, Samson appeared shockingly calm, his face devoid of emotion, his voice steady as he answered questions. He described his relationship with Ashley as purely platonic, claiming they only met to play basketball and talk about school life. But as detectives pressed with sharper questions, exposing contradictions in his statements, Samson's defensive walls began to crack. He admitted that their relationship had gone beyond mere friendship, but still denied any physical intimacy. When confronted with testimonies from Ashley's friends, who knew the true nature of their relationship, Samson finally confessed to having sexual relations with her, an illegal act with a minor under Illinois state law. In a desperate attempt to protect himself, Samson tried to shift the narrative, casting himself as the victim. He painted Ashley as an obsessed young girl who relentlessly pursued him, even claiming that she had been the one initiating their relationship. "She wouldn't leave me alone," Samson said, his voice filled with self-pity. "I just wanted to end things, but she kept clinging to me." Chief Detective Stephen Johnson, a man who had spent his career dealing with criminal cases, immediately recognized the familiar signs of a liar. His story changed every time he told it, Johnson noted. Every time we exposed a hole in his account, he adjusted his version. That was a clear sign that he was hiding the truth, and we suspected that truth had everything to do with Ashley's disappearance. After hours of intense interrogation, with exhaustion evident on his face, Samson finally broke down and admitted to meeting Ashley on the day she vanished. He recounted that they had argued inside his car about ending their relationship. According to Sampson, the argument escalated to the point where he demanded that she get out of the car. When she refused, he admitted to forcibly dragging her out and leaving her on the side of the road. However, he insisted that Ashley was still alive and unharmed when he drove away, a claim that detectives increasingly doubted. One of the most chilling details of Sampson's initial confession was what he did after abandoning Ashley. Instead of worrying about the safety of a young girl left alone in a remote area, Sampson went to a local bar, spent the night dancing and drinking, and showed no concern or remorse. When asked why he never went back to check on Ashley, he responded with a disturbingly cold statement. "I was afraid of what I might find." It was a response that sent chills down the spines of even the most seasoned investigators. Knowing that Sampson was still withholding the full truth, Chief Detective Stephen Johnson, who had known Sampson as a teenager through a law enforcement explorer program, decided to change tactics. During a bathroom break, Johnson privately approached Sampson, taking a more personal approach. "I've known Sampson since he was a kid," Johnson later recalled. "I knew his grandmother, a wonderful woman who raised him with all the love in the world. So I brought her up, asking him what she would think if she knew what he was doing to these investigators, to Ashley's family, and to the entire community. That was the moment I saw something break in his eyes, as if the final wall had collapsed." When Sampson returned to the interrogation room, he was a different man. His shoulders slumped, his voice weakened, and he finally began to recount the horrifying truth about that day. After 12 grueling hours of questioning, the terrifying reality was finally revealed. Sampson had tried to kill Ashley. "We argued about ending the relationship," Sampson confessed, his voice detached as if he were talking about someone else. "She started screaming and threatening to tell everyone about us. I couldn't let that happen. I would lose everything, my job, my respect, everything." With chilling detail, Sampson described how he grabbed Ashley's neck and began strangling her. "I heard her neck snap," he said, shocking everyone in the room. "But she was still breathing. So I took off my belt and strangled her again." Believing Ashley was dead, Sampson dragged her body deep into the woods at Citizens Park, a vast wilderness area nearly 20 minutes from where the car had been found. He struggled to pull her through thick underbrush, down a steep slope, and left her in a secluded spot where he believed no one would ever find her. "I made sure she was dead," Sampson said, sending shivers through the room. "I checked her breath and her pulse. There was nothing. She was dead." Sampson's horrifying confession triggered a race against time to recover Ashley's body. With each passing hour, the chances of finding crucial forensic evidence diminished. Sampson agreed to lead investigators to the location where he had left Ashley. As they drove, heavy rain began to pour down, as if nature itself was trying to erase the traces of his monstrous crime. As the police convoy entered Citizens Park, a vast area with hundreds of acres of dense forest, a sense of despair began to set in among the investigators. The ground was soaked and slippery. Rain continued to fall relentlessly, and Sampson seemed unsure of the exact location. "I think it's somewhere around here," he said, vaguely gesturing toward a vast stretch of woods. "I'm not really sure." It was dark when I was here. Officers and volunteers quickly spread out, searching every inch of the area, calling Ashley's name into the stormy night, clinging to the faint hope of a miracle that no one dared to believe in. After 30 tense minutes of searching, a detective's voice suddenly rang out from deep within the woods. "I found her." "I found Ashley." For everyone at the scene, what they witnessed next would be an image that haunted them forever. Ashley lay motionless on the damp ground, her body covered in mud and leaves, her clothes torn from being dragged through the brush. Her neck was twisted at an unnatural angle, her skin pale, her lips a haunting shade of blue from oxygen deprivation. Everyone braced themselves for the worst, believing they had found the lifeless body of a beautiful young girl whose life had been cruelly stolen. And then, the unimaginable happened. A moment so miraculous that even the most skeptical observers could only describe it as divine intervention. As an officer knelt beside Ashley to check for any sign of life, he noticed a slight movement. Her fingers twitched, Then, a faint, nearly imperceptible breath. "She's alive!" the officer shouted, his voice breaking with emotion. "Get me a medic now!" The news shot through the radio like an electric shock, sending waves of disbelief and hope. Ashley Reeves, the girl Samson Shelton had tried to kill and left for dead in the woods nearly 30 hours earlier, was still alive. Her breath was fragile, barely clinging to existence, but it was undeniable proof of the extraordinary power of human will, the refusal to surrender to death. The scene instantly shifted from the somber stillness of a crime scene to the frantic urgency of a rescue operation. Police officers, many of whom had served in war zones and witnessed unspeakable tragedies, could not hold back tears as they beheld Ashley, a fragile life clinging desperately to survival. "Hang in there, sweetheart. We've got you. Your mom is waiting for you," one officer whispered into her ear, while others carefully lifted her onto a stretcher, fearing that any sudden movement could worsen her already critical condition. Ashley's condition was beyond dire. Her neck was broken, her body suffering from severe hypothermia after spending more than a day and night exposed to the cold rain. Her skin was pale, almost bluish, her lips darkened from lack of oxygen. She had multiple traumatic brain injuries, bruises, and scratches covering her entire body, evidence of a brutal struggle and the violent dragging through the rugged forest terrain. But the most astonishing fact was that, despite being strangled multiple times to the point of a fractured neck, her central nervous system had somehow maintained just enough function to keep her alive for nearly 30 hours. "It was one of the greatest miracles I've ever witnessed in my career," said Dr. Mark Thompson, the emergency physician who first treated Ashley at the scene, his voice heavy with emotion. "With those injuries, surviving even 30 minutes would have been miraculous, let alone 30 hours. There is no medical explanation for this beyond an unbreakable will to live." As the medical helicopter landed to airlift Ashley to St. Louis University Medical Center, word of the miracle spread rapidly. Michelle Reeves, who had just endured more than a day trapped in a mother's worst nightmare, now faced a different kind of battle. Her daughter was alive, but in critical condition. "When they called to say they had found Ashley, I had prepared myself for the worst," Michelle later recalled, tears streaming down her face as she relived that fateful moment. "And then they said, 'She's alive.' I collapsed onto the floor and sobbed. It was a mix of overwhelming joy and sheer terror. Joy that my daughter was still here, and terror over what she would have to endure in the days ahead." At the hospital, Ashley was rushed into emergency surgery. The doctors were not only fighting to save her life but also to minimize permanent damage. After hours of delicate procedures to stabilize her cervical spine, Ashley was placed in intensive care, medically induced into a coma to reduce brain swelling and give her body time to heal. Meanwhile, at the police station, Samson Shelton was booked, fingerprinted, and photographed. The images later shocked the public and the justice system, while Ashley was fighting for her life with horrific injuries. Samson bore almost no scratches, proving that Ashley had been unable to fight back against his brutal, sudden attack. Samson Shelton was charged with attempted first-degree murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault. The case quickly became national news, sending shockwaves not only through the local community, but across the country. The story of a teacher exploiting his position to groom a student and then attempting to kill her to cover his crimes forced many to reconsider safety measures and oversight within schools. In the days that followed, as Ashley continued her fight in intensive care, the Reeves family put their lives on hold to stay by her side. Michael Reeves, Ashley's father, a man known for his patience and unwavering strength, could not hold back tears as he sat by his daughter's bedside, watching her connected to countless machines. "I always thought I could protect my daughter from anything in this world," he admitted, his voice breaking. "But I couldn't protect her from this. That feeling of helplessness will stay with me forever." Tacy, Ashley's older sister, became the rock of the family during this crisis. She put her college studies on hold to be there for her sister, reading to Ashley every day, reminiscing about childhood memories, and repeatedly telling her that everyone was waiting for her to wake up and come home. Meanwhile, Samson's bizarre behavior in jail only fueled public outrage. Just days after his arrest, he allegedly attempted suicide. a move many suspected was a manipulative attempt to garner sympathy or build a mental health defense. His demeanor oscillated between indifference and self-pity, but he never once expressed genuine remorse for what he had done to Ashley. But while Samson faced justice, Ashley embarked on another extraordinary journey, the journey of recovery. After a week in a coma, she began showing signs of consciousness. At first, it was small movements of her fingers. Then, she opened her eyes. And finally, what doctors called the second miracle moment, Ashley tried to speak. Her first words, though weak and barely audible, shattered the emotional dam in the hospital room. "Mom, home." 3 simple words that carried an entire world of meaning, a promise that this resilient young woman was determined not only to survive but to reclaim her life. But Ashley's road ahead was long and grueling. She had to relearn everything, from the simplest functions like swallowing and breathing without assistance to more complex tasks like sitting up, standing, and walking. The physical rehabilitation process demanded patience and a level of perseverance beyond most people's limits, especially for a young woman who had just survived an unimaginable trauma. "The pain was beyond anything I could describe," Ashley later recalled in a rare interview, speaking about her recovery. "Every movement, every step, every attempt to form a full sentence felt like torture. There were days when I wanted to give up, to disappear into the darkness and never come back. But then I remembered I had fought too hard to survive. I wasn't going to let the man who tried to kill me take anything else from my life." His unshakable determination inspired not only her medical team, but an entire community. Volunteers organized fundraisers to help cover her mounting medical expenses. Letters, cards, and gifts flooded in from across the country, many from complete strangers who had been moved by her story. After 3 months in the hospital and an intensive rehabilitation center, Ashley accomplished what many doctors initially deemed impossible. She went home. She walked through her front door with the help of a walker, speaking in a voice still weak, but growing stronger each day. It was a moment that marked not just a victory for modern medicine, but a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Meanwhile, the justice system proceeded with the case against Samson Shelton. To spare Ashley and her family the pain of a grueling trial, prosecutors offered a plea deal. Samson pleaded guilty to first-degree attempted murder and was sentenced to 20 years in prison without the possibility of early release, a sentence many in the community felt was too lenient for his brutal crime, but a necessary trade-off to ensure he faced punishment while sparing Ashley from reliving her nightmare in court. The story of Ashley Reeves, from the brink of death to a symbol of hope and recovery, will forever serve as a powerful reminder of the strength of the human will. Even in the darkest night, the smallest spark of survival can ignite a flame strong enough to drive back the shadows and guide a person home, not just to safety, but to a life filled with purpose, resilience, and meaning.